Not possible. The moon is very bright. We're on the bridge, but I don't think you can see it because I think it's too dark. So you probably just see static. But maybe you can see the bridge. Or maybe not. Yeah, yesterday was like an hour-long episode. That shit took forever to edit, and I know that because I'm the one who had to edit it. And I know that even though I haven't edited it yet, it took a while because I know that it was a lot of shit yesterday. Anyways, warning: the following program is recorded live and is not intended for children. This program may contain graphic and dark content that may be distressing for some viewers and against the terms of service for most mainstream websites. Should you choose to redistribute, please do so only in good faith. The themes and opinions expressed in this program should be considered psychotic and a total disinformation campaign, and should not be used for political or academic purposes. Facts are not going to be checked, and no sources or citations will be provided. Thank you again for joining. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome back to Rainbows and Razor Blades, a show from the void. By the Gregorian calendar, it is currently the 8th day in the 12th month, the month of December, in the year of the Lord, 2022. We come live today from I forget the name of it. Some fucking middle school, but also the Colony, New York, and the Crossings. That's I think this property is probably technically not the school's. I would assume that the school's property line ends here, but I'm not really sure who owns this easement. Like, it could be private property that's an easement. It could be part of the Colony Town Crossings Park. Whatever it is, that's what we're chilling here today. And gross. Look at my goofy coat. My goofy coat layers. I'm wearing a coat that's bigger than the coat that I'm wearing over it, and the coat that I'm wearing under it looks like a homeless person's coat. It's like I'm quite the walking contradiction. And like that's how it is. Like, that's just how it is. Like, this is my coat. That's it. This is my coat. And everyone's like, consumerism, you need a new one. That one is just, it makes you look poor. It makes you look of low social repute. And I'm just like, okay. Like, oh, fucking okay. Who am I trying to impress? Right? Like, this guy down here? I don't think so. I do not think so. So, like, what do I have to gain? What do I have to lose? I'm pretty sure that person's not even walking this direction. I'm pretty sure that they're walking their little sweater dog the other direction. Can't see their face, I see the back of their head. I mean, they could be walking backwards, so could their dog and its goofy little red sweater. Yeah, I mean, most people are probably about as smart as your average horse. I really mean that. Like, horses aren't dumb animals, right? Like, this is not to insult horses. They're not dumb, but yeah, I mean, the average person is just like, I'll put it to you like this, okay? I'm one beat and a step ahead of the average person, right? And think about that. That means that I am closer to a horse in my intellectual prowess than the people who are like the smartest of us men, right? Like, the smartest of men, like, it's not even fucking comparable how unfathomably more intelligent they are than a horse. Like, the horse does not even have like premonitions of the future, let alone a set of like working inner dialogue that it can just like dissociate into and come up with all these like heinous justifications and ideologies for why we should just, like, I don't know, kill people, burn shit, fuck school. Like, a horse isn't really out there menacingly like that, I don't think, at least maybe in the history of forever. A horse is like has a horse ever robbed a bank? Horse doesn't even really have concept of money. Has a horse ever robbed a grain silo? Like, maybe. I have no idea. I wouldn't know how to measure that in history. But what I do know is that men do this all the time. And that the average man not being much smarter than a horse, you gotta wonder, like, what are they capable of getting up to, since they are, in fact, smarter than a horse. On today's episode of Rainbows and Razor Blades, we're going to be talking about, it's a troubled topic that you gotta be careful how you speak upon it. Because it is considered a disability, right? And you got to be careful when you're talking about the disabled, because this song ends in the gas chamber, and that's not, I think we need more social support. But so we're going to be talking about violence, violent, very specifically, male. I don't have another word for it. And this is actually, believe it or not, the politically correct, like, I'm not using this word offensively or to be pejorative. Retarded crime. Like, crimes of retard would probably be a little bit more, nope, we go this way, would probably be a little bit more of like a insult, because it mashes together the politically correct, what's the word? Social religious denomination of do-gooders who are so afraid of their own shadow and the shadow of others that they're willing to change the way that they speak just to make sure that they can find each other, so that they can embrace each other in their safety and in their correctness and in their moral supremacy, I suppose. Their self-perceived authority as arbiter of justice. Anyways, I'm not one of those people. So there's a difference when you like say it in vitriol, like that fucking retard went and did all that retarded dumb criminal shit. Okay. You may be getting demonetized. It's very different than saying like anyone under about 85 IQ that does a sexual violent crime, we don't sterilize them, right? We don't eugenics them. We take care of them this generation, and we do so by rope, and because it's dignified. Like, well, at least your feet weren't touching the earth when your soul left your body. We brought you that much closer to heaven, right? Like, we gave you a lawful execution for your convicted crimes, right? Now, most places have put a stop to that. I would say maybe all places have put a stop to that. Like, what's the new way that that's going to pop up, right? Like, what medieval... I hope it's electricity. Right? Like, we've tried it once. And, we could turn the voltage up. You know, you've seen it in the movies. You've seen it at the end of, District 9, was it? It's like the same... Elysium did it. Same thing. Like, the scene itself, the BFG, scene from... Hell movie with The Rock. Was it The Rock? It was somebody. I forget, Doom. Right? The scene itself is the gun, right? The execution becomes the matter of principle, not the character involved. That's why he wears the executioner's hood, because like who he is not necessarily important, and he has the right to be anonymous. Even if people kind of know who their hanging man is, right? Then you gotta be hoping that you're not held accountable if you're a criminal, or you just gotta maybe consider this. Not being a degenerate and not being a criminal. The problem then is bigotry, right? The men who, they don't just know that they're smarter than a horse. They're so much smarter than a horse that they're writing books about why we should do eugenics, right? I'm not one of those men. I think eugenics is a bad idea, and I'm of the latter religious dictum. Well, I guess it's not really dictum now, is it? It's unconstitutional. I'm of the extremist moral degenerate's opinion that we should just go back to hanging them. Like, it's not, and we don't have to do the hanging, right? We don't have to do bullets, like whatever it is, right? We could do the half measure of eugenics, but then it's just going to be a violent sexual assault at like knife point the next time. Oh, we didn't stick his penis in, but we still tied her up. Oh, we were going to put him in a hospital because he had 85 IQ and was doing meth. No. If we had a pit that went in like the Star Wars Wilhelm scream, bye. I'll be taking Princess Leia out for a walk later. That's also what those men want, by the way. That's who those men are. They're like, you got your daughter as a concubine, right? And that's why we have a culture that doesn't do that, right? Like, we worship a lot of really profane things, but the death of each other isn't generally celebrated and regarded with glee, right? Like, I say that, people unsubscribe, they downvote. Okay. At least we have some social mechanism in place to keep sure and to keep safe the next child's generation, so that when they wake up in the morning, they're not thinking like, shit, I didn't do anything to deserve this, and they're trying to hang me for nothing, for like legitimately for nothing. Now, again, I take the position against sexually violent criminals, And I actually don't really differentiate between child abuse and violence. But I'm speaking today about violence, right? Like people who they're not just raping your daughter, they're punching her in the face, right? And the claim that those people should be treated differently than others is it's a moot argument, because actually the argument you need to be having is that thing a horse, and do we give horses rights? Right? You have to dehumanize them, and that's it. Therein the danger is dehumanizing people, because they're people, right? But at what point do you throw away your human rights? I think it's when you start hurting other people. There's people who hurt other people in terrible ways, who ruin their lives slowly, right? Someone who like breaks into your bank account, fiscal crime. Are we gonna hang them? There's a lot of people that would like Bernie Madoff dead. I don't really take that opinion. I don't really care that much, right? But violence, especially when there's like this whole system in place to stop eugenics and genocide, but baby out with the bathwater. Okay, but now how do we deal with the fact that this one's sexually violent? It's really hard to hold people accountable for that. It's almost like the system itself isn't designed to let people get away with that. It really isn't. It's just that the system is designed that it makes mistakes, and it makes maybe not as many mistakes as would be made if we didn't have the system, right? Like, how many people were not convicted? Like Casey Anthony, did she kill her baby? Probably, yeah. But does that mean that we should execute her, right? Because it's a child crime, violent child crime, right? Do we hang her up by the neck? What if she had been convicted? Then, bye. Wilhelm scream. I don't care. Right? We think you did it. But one of the reasons that we don't do that is because what if we Wilhelm scream her, but then 5 years later we find out it really was the dad. Right? Bum bum bum. Well shit, we can't unkill her. So do we really want the state to start making decisions for us? What if they tell us, you searched the wrong type of porn? Actually, that's a hanging offense now, because that's a violent sex crime. Like, what? What violence have I committed? Well, it's adjacent to. It's adjacent to violence. It's thought crime violence. You watched violent BDSM. You're going, what? Right? And that's what they want. There are people who want that, right? And they're generally religious people. They're not usually like, if they're patriotic about a country, it's only because they believe that the country will come and defend them with the sword when they pick up the cross. They're going to be putting their spells on you, chanting to their God, and their men are going to be breaching your door at gunpoint, and if they run out of bullets, then they'll just go back to using swords and metal. Or they'll just make more bullets. But, you understand what I mean, I think. And so what do we do? What's the balance? How do we figure out, like, how do we as individuals, let alone as a society, choose to make analysis about issues like this that have been decided for us? Well, we've just found out that one of those issues that wasn't really as decided as we had thought it was, which you're an idiot if you thought it had been decided. So anyways, we were talking about how, I'm just going to turn back the other way. How does an individual, right, come to the decision that they even need to make a decision about something, right? Like, things that we thought were so settled, that we just like gave ourselves the pass of thinking about, we just took it as implicit, are getting taken away again, right? Or they're changing, or that they're not as secure as they used to be. And for someone like me, that's life and death. So I have to think about, well, what's life and death? So I run thought experiments, and one of the thought experiments is, what do I personally believe and what would I vote for when it comes to violent sexual convictions, right? With people who are provenly, we'll use the word retarded, but I mean incompetent to stand trial, right? Like, oh, he was doing meth and was psychotic at the time. Like, does that mean that he's not culpable for murder? No, it just means that now they have to answer to it. Like, there's so many moral gray zones that unless you take an extremist position about it and you start saying things like I do, like, oh, we should just Wilhelm scream them into the Rancor pit, or whatever the hell that, the desert one is called. Bye. Or we should just rope them up. You can't talk about stuff like that. Like, that's against the terms of service, because it's just implied that that topic is off limits to think about, but it isn't anymore, right? Like, you wouldn't have thought it'd be a thing of discussion to have to talk about, is the doctor going to get prosecuted, and is a prosecutor going to develop a criminal case to hold people, into prison, into custody, to be remanded into wherever they remand you to. right? Like, there's people building prosecutors' cases against people who take unborn babies out of women. And like, okay. But a lot of people really, really didn't think that would ever be a thing that was challenged again. Like, I think it's degenerate, to be really honest, for a society to hyper-normalize access to reproductive women's health care. I think that the social responsibility for that, the ball is completely dropped, because they won't let us do what needs to be done, which is child education. So it's like you lose on both fronts with these people, right? They won't let you teach the kids about what the kids need to know in order to have it be safe. And then you're punished on the other end for when mistakes do happen. They morally blame you, and they say things like, well, I'm glad, because you guys are whores. Not only is that you deserve it, and you should have known better. How are you supposed to know better if you won't even let them talk about it? If you punish them for even thinking about it, if you make it a sin to even like consider that it could exist. Now, those walls are being challenged more than ever because it's in the child's hand. Ooh, hello. Hi, it's not me personally, it's just whatever the kid is holding. It's whatever is staring back at them. That amount of exposure, it does something to the frailty of mind that can be inculcated from parent, usually theistic, into child who is like at best still in magical thinking, and if later on at best spiritually agnostic, and if still not fully demoralized or indoctrinated by the time that they're like inquisitively exiting 16 and entering like, oh shit, like they're actually going to be doing this with each other phase of their life. Right, we're speaking about sex, we're speaking about violence. That's usually the age where like the stuff that they've been fantasizing about, right? The 2-year-old that punches the other 2-year-old, the antisocial 2-year-old, when it grows up, when it turns 16, is it going to continue to do exactly what it was doing when it was 2? Yeah, probably. That nature versus nurture shit definitely matters, but there's a lot of parts of us that are just absolutely nature that we don't even talk about. Because most of us are so on the reserved path that we don't even go out and explore or figure out where we've been or where we're going, or just seeing what's actually out there that isn't just on the carved path. And part of what the problem is that the paths that we've been following were dead ends, and you absolutely cannot turn back. And when we look back, or when we try to go back, it's all overgrown and we're lost in the woods. And I think intellectually and morally, that's where my society is. These should not be coming up. I hope that those are not the spring ones for next year that are getting tricked into coming up too early. That's very bizarre. Those are skunk cabbages, but that looks like what spring looks like, and winter hasn't actually come yet. So if spring is happening now, which it looks like it is, that's so bizarre, dude. That's weird. And they're always the first ones up, too. Right? Like, I think my society has lost its way. And I think when we look around, we don't even know which parts are the foundation and which parts are oppression. We don't know whether whether those two things are the same, and where we do know that those two things are the same, we're being told we can't question it, right? And part of that is going to mean bloodshed, and preventing that bloodshed is, well, it's the status quo, unfortunately. And until that isn't true, I personally do not see a better way forward. But I know that things are changing, and I know that pretty soon there'll be a catalyst, and I know that enough people are pushing for that to happen, that something big is going to break, even if it's just in the minds of the people. If it's an event like George Floyd, like, it doesn't have to be a blackout, it doesn't have to be a nuclear bomb strike or anything terrifying. It doesn't even get to be a virus or any of this shenanigans that they push on us. But something in our zeitgeist is going to shift, and man, we are going to really come to a moral head. It hasn't happened yet. You know, we've been talking a little bit about, you know, the trans rights issues and this and that. I think the closest I can think of maybe was the Rittenhouse case. And that got dealt with appropriately, I thought. And that's why we have the court system. I think the court system, out of everything that we have, is one of the better systems. I mean, it's obviously corrupted. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it is not, but at least it's something. And that something may just be one of the only things keeping people's blood-shedding instincts and dark, taboo, esoteric religious beliefs from spilling out into the schools, from us IQ testing your 2-year-old child, right? Putting anodes, cathodes on his brain, trying to figure out which side of his brain is which hemisphere, tell you he's got 80 Dick D's nuts in your mouth, whatever they're going to tell you. You know, whether they're the Catholic Church putting a wafer and later a dick in the mouth, or it's the public schools sending your autistic kid to go sit in a corner and stare at a fucking wall as punishment. There's some eerie fucking things going on, and I think that when people finally are forced to wake up, and they will be forced to wake up, that they will see the world in a way that, like, they knew it existed, but they've been sleeping on it. The same way that, like, your dreams are incoherent, their waking life has been made to be incoherent. And I think that's such a spiritual tragedy, because I think that the gift of being so lucid and yet so bewildered is that you get to marvel in your own bewildering, right? Like, you get to be like, wow, I don't know shit. Like, that's like a really powerful part of being human. But so is getting answers. And I think that a lot of those two things are stifled by public school and the institution, and just how much of the foundation of our reality right now is just completely the worst thing ever. I can hear the highways from here. There's too many cars. There's just too many people. We have these systems that are so grossly, overly developed past what would have been healthy for our minds, for our cultures, for our atmosphere, on the macro or micro, but especially I think on the micro. Like, you can't sit here, people, oh, global warming is a myth. But is it a myth that all the major megafauna are dying, and that our land races of our local trees have died, and that the new land races that have engulfed everywhere is like, I'm holding it now. It's the only thing out here. It's this stupid vine called Oriental Bittersweet. It's everywhere. It kills every tree, right? Like, are we just not going to talk about this stuff? Are we going to continue to sit here and bicker about whether or not that? I mean, I actually am glad that we're dealing with the right-wing terrorism. I think that that's the right way to analyze it, and I think it's right on the warpath of where we need to be. Like, if we're gonna do this, if we're gonna be serious about a mutiny, an overthrow, a coup, a civil war, all these things that we hear people like me talking about, if we're gonna be serious and organized or disorganized about it, we have to at least know what we're fighting over. And I think right now, we're only starting to hint at talking about the right things and what comes next, you know. And at the same time, everything is changing, right? I think it was something like 85 or 87, 80 something percent of the world lives outside of the top 10% living conditions, right? And then of the wealth that is concentrated, like that can be like tangibly, allegedly measured in assets, like 1% of society controls everything. And like, okay, maybe that's true. But if that's true, at least on a local scale, why are we not talking about all these different things? And at what point, if you try to become independent, do they come and tell you you're not allowed? Like, so on some Rajneesh Puram shit for real though. On like the meme, right? Like the counter experiment to this is the autonomous zone, the Seattle autonomous zone, the Chaz, the CHOP, right? Like that's a totally different topic. Thanks for listening to me ramble and wander and just ponder over things that, you know, I don't know, man. That's supposed to be underground, dude. Like still frozen, you know? That's what I think anyway. I could be wrong. It's just what I think. I mean, I could be wrong. But marvel at how little I know, you know. I try to get lost as close as I can to my home, and right now I am lost. I don't recognize the tree lines anymore because they've encroached so far. I mean, I know relative where I am. I just don't know bearings which direction I am. The highway's over there. That's probably the school I was talking about earlier. But I have no idea. Like, I'm lost. I'm not lost enough for it to be an issue, obviously. You can't get that lost anymore. You have to go so far out of your way to get that lost. I mean, there's definitely the wilderness in the middle of nowhere. But, like, I just am trying to find a better way. And I think it'll start small, and I think it'll be very personal to me. And we're just going to have to be our own power bubble, because I can't change the wider system, right? I'm more of a doomsday cult. Like, I'm a mindset. I'm a philosophy. Like, you don't have to follow me directly. You don't have to give me money. I don't beg. I don't run ads, right? Because like I said, I've never had to work a day in my life, right? I'm not rich. Look at my old coat. Look at what I wear. Do I look rich? Yeah, a little bit. But I also look like I'm kind of an autistic, mentally ill person that you find. Like, I'm walking exactly what I am. And people are like, you really wear your heart on your sleeve, priestess. I'm like, no, I have autism. I just wear the same clothes a lot. It's not a heart on my sleeve issue. It's a stim issue. I wear the same pants with the same clothes every day. Every day if I can. I'll never change my clothes if I don't have to. If they don't at gunpoint make me do it, then it ain't happening. Right? They can give me detention all day. Oh, did you change in gym class, priestess? Well, they didn't call me priestess back then. Oh, did you change in gym class? Like, no. Or you just say yes and they can't question it. Well, I don't know. Oh, how close you watching me? Why are you singling me out? Seems like harassment. They don't need that. But eventually they do. They'll give you detention. Ask me how I know that gym coaches give you detention for not changing in the change room. You force your kids to change, or they give them detention. Think about that. Think about that. You force your kids to change in front of each other. And they gender segregate them, and they let them sexually abuse each other for 15 minutes as part of the process of making sure that your kids don't get fat, which is unpreventable. Or actually, I think it's the opposite. I think it's to make sure that they do get fat. Or it's with apathy towards them if they do. It's like, whatever. We're just babysitting you. You're not learning anything. All of you are retarded. You're all completely dysgenic. You can't use that word. It's canceled, by the way. You also can't use, there's a bunch of them, but you can't use that one. Even if the school is designed that way. Whoa. Now I know where I am. It's not as fun when you're not as lost. I like getting really lost, but not really, really lost. And I definitely don't like getting really, really, really lost. That's like not something that I'm trying to really do. Because the path's like right there, and I was like walking, and they were walking this way, and if I kept walking at pace, we would run into each other. So I played the best that I could with the triangle game, where you have to make a triangle but always maintain. Damn, that's a lot of poop. Who really comes back here to poop? I've probably done it, but that's definitely not mine. I'm not that big. That was like the size of my leg. That must have been someone like 5 times my size who has an eating disorder and eats too much crap. Or it's just someone like me who has IBS, I guess. But like, if you're gonna, I get it. Honestly, I get it. Like, if you have to, but it's not ideal. I mean, like, that's not the place you do it. I mean, they don't know that. I know that. Yeah, I kind of get why they would go there. Because, like, it's distance, right? And, like, who's looking there besides, like, everybody? Like, besides every single person who walks by. I guess it cuts the tree line sight and you couldn't walk this way. Yeah, it's kind of a strat. I don't know. We already came this way, dude. Like, that part of the recording you will not see today. I actually went so far as to record the entire intro again, because some of the stuff I was talking about, where we started with today's topic, because, like, I'm pretty stoned right now. Like, I'm obviously not making a lot of sense. I'm talking in circles. I sound like the mentally ill people on a park bench, because if I didn't have the overexposure to healthcare that I have, I would be out there with my people. Like, those are my people, right? I'd be living in a tent. But, you know, instead it's kind of the opposite of that. So the show is kind of the opposite of that. Generally, what that means, they got my mute bubble a lot quicker than I would have thought. A lot quicker than I would have liked. And worse than that, there was a lot worse than that, actually. They were like a 15-year-old girl. I won't film her because it's weird to film 15-year-old girls in general. But I try pretty hard to keep, like, anyone who doesn't look like I understand that they might not understand that there is no reasonable expectation in privacy, and that it may not make them very comfortable if I was just like filming them like this. It wouldn't be unlawful. There are some laws against like some stuff, but I'm by no means an expert. Like, I'm thinking about it in my head, like, I shouldn't even really give advice on this. Like, I don't really know. But I know when you're in public, there's no reasonable expectation of privacy. But I didn't know that as a kid. Like, if someone came up to me and was filming me and I just was a boomer about it, or a kid about it, right? Boomers I have no respect for. I'll film them all day. I hope it makes them uncomfortable, and I hope they call the cops. Like, what are you doing filming me? Oh, we're doing a show called Angry Old People. You guys are just old enough to be featured. I don't want to be on your fucking show. I'm calling the cops. Yeah, good lady. That's the show. That's the show. But when it comes to like random jogging normie girls, I'm not trying to film them or talk about any of the topic. Like, when I say, and it's not intended for children, I mean it. It's more what it is that it is not intended for normies or children. Maybe I should say that. I think I might start adding that. I'll have to take a couple words out. Like, warning. The following program is recorded live and is not intended for normies or children. This program is made at any time. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So my friend gets out of work at 4, so we're 15 of 4, so that means I have 45 more minutes of today's episode. That's a long time to record. That's too long. We need to be a live stream. That's the thing. Like, but if I'm a live stream, I'm gonna get canceled because I need to be able to edit. I don't like admitting it, but I have a disability. The same way that people with Tourette's can't stop themselves from swearing, I'm autistic and can't stop myself from and here's the other thing. I'm not gonna tell you what the other thing is. I'm stomping around. I kind of like the way it echoes off the sides. I was kind of liking that stim. But then I started getting self-conscious. I was like, oh, what if the people watching on the internet think I stomped like an idiot? So then I figured I'd explain it verbally. But then after I started explaining it verbally, I'm like, no one cares. I'm not sure that's like an autistic thing or like a social phobia thing or like a trauma child thing. I have no idea. I wouldn't know. Therapist who like thinks they're pretty smart would probably be like, why do you think that matters to you? What? I don't know. I want to know things. I want to know how I can solve it. Would you like to figure out some strategies to solve it even if you didn't know why that it was happening? Would you still want to, or is it just about interrogating out blah 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 blah? And this is why I don't go to a therapist, because the therapist would just tell me like, stop, you're doing it again. You're pretending you're your own therapist and you're not very good at this. That sounds like some critical black and white thinking and catastrophizing and dissociation. We can start you on some medication. We could try it. Like, have you considered medication? Have you considered medication? I work a job. Like, I make my money fair and square and get taxed. dirt. Unnatural white pollution dirt. Ah! When I was a kid, those weren't houses back there. School's like over there. Whatever's going on over there. Over there's like, over there there may have been houses over there. I don't really remember. I'm from the complete other side of the park. Like, this is like as far as I ever walk. Like, if I go any closer, we'll be in Normieville over here, and that's I'm not doing that. Like, I'm you see the bridges there, and there's like, well, you can't see them, but my house is like way that way. Probably like maybe a little under a mile towards the main road back there, near like the. Well, I shouldn't dox myself, actually. I have featured so many people on here. I featured Dan, Chris, Val, a different Val, Seb. It's like an NB, short for Sabrina, but also could be short for something else. Just Seb. I've had Deanna. I've had Deanna appear as herself. Most people don't want to appear as themselves, which, like, I get. Dude, look at this guy. He's just like, ah, fuck me, right? That's the FBI, bro. They're like, what is this fucking terrorist up to today? Sup, feds? Hey. I'm going like this. Can't see it, but. Sup, feds? So, yeah, like, we out here chilling. I've had so many people. Who else have I had? I've had Pam. I've had Sarah. I've had. Who else have I had? I've had Tay. I've had Taylor. 2 different people. I've had Margie and her cohort. She had like a whole entourage. I was like, what the fuck? They didn't really appear as themselves. I'm not really sure they even knew them on my vlog, but I don't fucking care. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy. I could put everyone's public information, just dox them right now, but that'd be so dumb, and I wouldn't want to do that to them. Yeah, I've put a lot of people on the internet. I try not to put everyone's like face if I can help it. Like, sometimes, you know, I mean, there's definitely public information. Like, people know who my friends are. But if I get famous, I'm gonna want to insulate myself more from the public. I just don't need that like level of scrutiny. Yeah. Like, why? You got something to hide? It's like, no, I'm shy and I'm trans.